Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night. It's 8 o'clock. Where else would you rather be but here? So, as you know, I will be joined by Anne-Marie Waters, leader of For Britain, on the stream. So she should be coming into the studio shortly. But before she joins, I just wanted to say a shout out to Chris and to Linda B. Linda, it's so lovely to see you on the stream. I'm very fortunate on the quality of the people who listen to me. Thank you very much for being here. Hi, Stu, Monsieur Le Whoop, Harry Johnson, and all. Good to see you here, folks. Right. So I see Anne-Marie is entering the studio. So I'll do my little routine before we bring her on. So just to let you know, if you're watching this on Facebook, share, like it. If you're watching it on the Naughty Channel YouTube, which sometimes doesn't send out notifications, make sure you share, subscribe, hit notifications. Make sure YouTube hasn't accidentally unsubscribed you. Please do that. Then if you want to follow me on my other social media channels, because there's lots of exclusive stuff going out all over the place. They're all down below, by the way, so you can check that out in the description below. If you like what you're saying, then the thing to do is to make sure you give a thumbs up. Hit as many thumbs up as you possibly can. Give yourself a digital workout. Come on, this is one way to lose weight. Keep fit. Give me thumbs ups on this. Don't give me thumbs down. Also, other useful things you can do is hit altnewsmedia.net/donate. Drop a pound in the hat. Come on, all of you folks. A little bit of charity here goes a long way. And the other thing, of course, to be aware of is super chats are enabled. So if you want your comment specifically dealt with, you know what to do. So Kim says, "Is this live?" Well, Kim, I think I'm live, yes, and I believe and yes, the stream is live. So look, I think as I say, Anne-Marie is getting herself organized. So just before we kick off, I wanted to show you this because before we get into Anne-Marie's view of how things are, here's something that happened to Joe Biden earlier today, and I couldn't resist it. Cue video. Hail to the chief. There he goes. Oops, he's down. Oh, he's really down. Oh, awkward. Keep going, Joe. We've only got a few more steps to go. Yeah, there you go, Joe. Remember to turn around. Yeah. How embarrassing is that? And the only thing more embarrassing than that is the explanation. What do you see this? Have a look at. Read this. This made me laugh. If we could just bring up the next. The White House blames Biden. The reason that he fell was it was the wind. Apparently, the wind toppled him over going up the steps, not once, not 2 times, but 3 times, as new questions over his health surface. As we can put that away. So there you go. That is the most powerful man in the world, Joe Biden, showing himself and for everything that many of us tried to tell you that he was. Hello, all those For Britain fans. I see you there. For Britain Patriot, John Britton, William Clark, John Newell, all of you folks. I see you all there. Now, I want to see if we can get Anne-Marie into the stream. I'm not sure if her setup is working at the moment. So I'll just do a quick double check here. Can we see if we can find out where Anne-Marie is?
David, check the private chat.
Okay. All right. So, folks. So there's a problem with Anne-Marie's system. Not too sure. However, there's a lady called Miriam Sohail who can come on the stream at 8:30. Apparently, she is a future For Britain MP, says Anne-Marie. So, okay, Anne-Marie, sorry that it's not working at your end. Don't really understand that, but technology is what it is. If you can't hear me, you can't hear this. What we're going to have to do is get a contact for Miriam. I'm not sure if we can work that one out. So let me see. This is what you call This is what you call thinking on your feet, folks. You know, you got to be able to work out. Now then, our prime guest hasn't been able to make it. Miriam Sohal, I think that's the name, should be able to make it. So let's see if we can get Miriam on in 15 or 20 minutes. But in the meantime, there's plenty of stuff for you and I to go through, and we will do. Okay. So can I just check, by the way, if this is now going live on YouTube? Right. So I have no idea why Anne-Marie cannot hear us, by the way. I don't know. It's annoying that she can't, because I really wanted to hear from her tonight. But yes, just want to check the comments here. Yeah, so it's clear. So I'm being told that it's not on YouTube. This is on YouTube. So what I would say to those on, okay, let me see if I can do something here. Let me do a little bit of messaging here. So messaging and talk. You can talk amongst yourselves, by the way. Let's see. I do see Anne-Marie kind of in the background. Hey, Anne-Marie, can you hear me? I can see the For Britain Trident. I can't hear Anne-Marie, so there's clearly something happening. I blame probably the Chinese more than likely, or perhaps the Russians. There we go. We'll see how we get on with this one, folks. But yeah, so there's patently a techno issue. So anyway, okay, so okay, hearing multiple things. Right, I wanted to bring this in. I'm starting here, and if others can join us, that'll be great. But as it is, so you will be aware. I saw this cartoon today. I thought it summed everything up. What do you folks think? Here we have poor Matt Hancock up a ladder. Mind you, he didn't fall down. He didn't fall, presumably, going up it. But we've completely run out of justifications for lockdown, Mr. Johnson. Well, I think that's, to be honest, a bit of an idealization of the truth of the matter, because I think that the force, yes, David Vance is freewheeling. Chris Davis, you're absolutely right. And by the way, I just wanted to say, I did see Johnny Briggs brought us a comment. John, thanks for being on the stream, and thanks also for contributing to the cause. I appreciate that. I don't think that the government has run out of excuses, and let me explain why I think that's the case. Okay, I think Miriam's going to be joining us actually in a second or two, but I just say this anyway. Did you see that France locked down? Did you see that Germany is now saying, "Oh, we're going to have to hit the brakes. We're going to have to hit the brakes. There's a third wave coming." Do you think? I'm just putting this out there. Do you think there's a possibility that, Britain might be, unfortunately, getting the same non-existent wave? You know, you're going to have, all right, so here's, I think we have Miriam joining us, or hopefully about to join us. Hello, Miriam, can you hear me? Oh, there's noise in the background, but there's no Miriam. Okay, I'll put that back off until Miriam comes into the stream. But yeah, so I think that, you know, quite honestly, oh, here we go. Here's Miriam. I'm going to bring Miriam, if you're braced there, Miriam, I'm going to bring you into the stream now. So, so here we go. And welcome, Miriam, to the stream. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
No, you've done very well to fill in at about a megasecond notice. But that's good to see you. I mean, you know, we do welcome our friends from For Britain on this stream, Miriam. And you know, there's so much happens in the political sphere, and there's so much been going on. So everyone, say hello to Miriam. She can, you know, I think she can see. You can see the comments there, Miriam. There's lots of.
Where do I see the comments?
Look over to the side of your screen, and you should see something. And you should see a menu button that says comments.
Oh right, yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I can see them.
That's weird. Actually, sometimes it's best not to look at them, Miriam. I find it depends. If they're good, they're brilliant. If they're not, but they're usually quite good, actually. So,
That's all right.
so look, it's very nice to have you, and you're very welcome in the stream. And obviously, Anne Marie rates you very highly. And one of the things, Miriam, let's start with this. I mean, I wanted to talk to Anne Marie about this, so I'm going to talk to you about the exact same thing. And it's what I see as the absolute state of British politics. Here we are 1 year on, more or less, since lockdown, and politics seems to have been completely changed. And I wonder, would you agree with that? And what's your thoughts around? Because COVID has kind of redefined everything, I think. Wonder what you think.
I think I completely agree. It has changed, but then also part of me does wonder how much of this was like this all along, but we didn't actually know. Obviously, sort of what with the internet and social media, things like that, things can't get sort of swept under the rug so easily. Ordinary people are starting to learn about politics and about what's going on and what should be happening and what shouldn't. And so everyone has a bit more of a platform now. So I mean that's kind of empowering in one way, yeah.
Yeah, I think people are more red pilled than they've ever been. As in they're more woke to some of the stuff that probably, as you're right, has been going on for ages. You're dead right, Miriam. This didn't happen last March. Some of the intense corruption and the treachery and all the rest of it that just pervades politics. I mean, the thing is, I always think it's very brave for decent people to go into politics, because so many of the people that are in politics, and I have to say, I know this from personal experience in the past, they're not necessarily the best. They're not necessarily our best. So it's good to see, new faces. So what is it you would like to achieve in politics then, Miriam?
It's not really what I've never really sort of thought that I'm getting into politics, if that makes sense. I just sort of, joined the party because I believed in everything that Anne Marie was saying.
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another, and I just felt myself getting involved more, helping more, and I now find myself in the role of party secretary, among other things. And yeah, I never planned any of this. I just tried to help. But, I mean, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I absolutely love what I'm doing. I don't have any particular personal ambitions. I just want to try and fix our country.
Yeah, I think. I mean, having presided over a couple of the For Britain annual conferences back in the days when we were allowed to get together, Miriam, one of the things that struck me about the For Britain the people that the members and the people that support the party is that the one thing you probably all got in common is you all want to do well by your country. I think that's the thing that I think is that strikes me. But then again, I mean, the Tories are going to say, but trust we want to do that. Labour say well, I don't know how you can really. I can't really say that with a straight face. But Labour pretend to care about the country. So how do you think then you can get your message out there at a time when we're kind of we're all still to significant degrees locked down and stuff? How do you see that working, especially coming up to elections and stuff later this year?
I think primarily transparency and honesty. I mean, the problem with, I think the Labour Party are probably quite honest in the sense that, they're sort of pro-immigration, pro-open borders, all that sort of thing. The Tories like to say that they're not, and they'll do some sort of token gestures like send 100 illegal immigrants back when 200 the next day arrive again. But in effect, they're both doing the same thing. Immigration has soared under the Tories. Immigration from outside of the EU, so nothing to do with Brexit or anything like that. They're different sides of the same coin, as it were. For Britain, we've got a very succinct and common sense manifesto. Our policies are quite simple and straightforward, and and it's honest. I mean, when we talk about something like immigration, we're talking about facts. You can't change the facts. We're facts, figures, numbers.
Yeah.
Like that. It's and then we've got a quite straightforward and simple common sense plan on how to deal with all the various issues.
I think Miriam, sorry, one of the things is honesty. You mentioned the word honesty, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. One of the big issues with the big parties is they are dishonest. Let me give you, for instance, because you mentioned immigration. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, postured up until the general election as, another Mrs. Thatcher type person who was going to get tough. She was going to get tough on the people coming across the channel. She's done not all she's ever done is put out press releases when things look a bit dodgy in the car, and that's it. She's achieved nothing. So I reckon lots of conservative type voters must feel very let down because they know that Labour have no interest in stopping immigration. As you said, Labour are honest. They hate this country, and that's just the end of it. But the Tories pretend not to hate it, but yet they have no interest in defending our borders. So I think honesty is something that you would think would appeal to the electorate, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, actions speak louder than words, and politicians are all very good at talking.
Yeah.
And it's just year after year they've been conning the public into voting for them, and it's time that people woke up, and they now have an alternative. For Britain is the alternative, and we can change things, and we will.
Well, certainly the way I see it, Miriam, I don't know if you'd agree, so if we keep going along with the existing political duopoly, what we have, then nothing's going to change ever, and so things that are bad will get worse. I think, but the other thing I think is that COVID has made such a big impact because I would, if I had said to you a year ago, hey, listen, we're all going to be living under house arrest, by the way, Prime Minister will just sort of will it, and thus it will happen. Would you believe me?
No.
See, this is it. I believe, and I know because I've read the For Britain manifesto, when you, For Britain and the party cares about things that, I see Anne-Marie Waters in the background as well. Maybe she's going to join us too. But in fact, actually, can we bring Anne-Marie into the stream? Hey, Anne-Marie, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh my goodness, we've got the whole For Britain. We've got loads of For Britain people now on the stream. Anne-Marie, you're really welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks, David. How are you?
I've never been better. Fighting fit, Anne-Marie. So we've got three of us. So yeah, I was going to say, like freedom is a fundamental value, I think, of For Britain, and our freedoms have been taken away so quickly, Anne-Marie, and how will they be? How do we get them back? Is my question.
With a lot of effort. I mean, look what they took away with the lockdown. They're not going to give back, and you can see that now with what Priti Patel is doing with the right to protest. And she's been writing out to the police and asking them, what laws do I need to pass so that you don't have to put up with the kind of protests that have actually shaped this country, David. A lot of the things that we achieved in this country were achieved through street protest and chaining ourselves to things. And it's an age-old tradition and an age-old fighting technique for the people to gain from the powerful. And they are now taking that away, and they know that they can get away with it now. And we're going to, I say it every time because it's the only answer. Stop voting for them. How people will go out and vote again for Tories, and they will. And I genuinely don't know what it's going to take. But we have the right to protest now is absurd, the rules they're bringing in with this new bill.
Yep.
The police will now tell us when we can start protesting, when we need to stop protesting. What sounds we're allowed to make, what noise we're allowed to make. And this will even apply to a single person. So if you're a single person standing outside Parliament with a megaphone in your hand, the police can tell you to stop or that you're making too much noise. And we know from bitter experience that the police will use those powers to shut up me and you, but not Black Lives Matter.
Oh,
They're
sorry.
going to criticize it.
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. Following on from what Anne-Marie said, Miriam, you know, if people can't protest, if we can't go out and whatever the thing is, you know, peacefully and lawfully register, you know, we disapprove of it and whatever. If you deny people that, Miriam, does that not build a powder keg that could result in things much more dangerous than anything we've seen for a long time in this country?
Yeah, I mean, totally. They're putting the pressure on, and they're doing it sort of like bit by bit. They're just slowly sort of squeezing society, and then all of a sudden, then they'll sort of throw a bone. They'll be like, "Oh right, you know, we can all travel on this date," and everyone will think, "Oh, okay, yeah, they're dealing with everything fine, and yeah, the government's looking after us." But then secretly, they're not. They're still tightening their grip. We're losing freedom of speech. We're losing our freedom of movement and travel. You know, we haven't got the freedom to have who we want in our own homes. It's insanity. And yeah, like what you said before, a year ago, if you'd have told me any of this, I would have thought, no, that sounds bizarre.
I'm sure you'd agree, Anne-Marie, if we could go back in time to February 2020, you know, if I'd have started talking about some of the stuff that's happened, you know, oh, if you're lucky, you might get 1 week you might be allowed a summer holiday, but you might not. I don't think we will, by the way, Anne-Marie. No. I think that's just a carrot dangled in front of the sheep. Get your vaccine, queue up, get your vaccine, and then you'll be able to get your vaccine passport, and then, oh, well, then maybe you won't go away. I mean, do you think do you think that Boris is going to open the country up?
No. I did for a while. I was hopeful. The reason I was hopeful is because if you go outside, it's very different. This is very different from the first lockdown when this all started. Mm-hmm. When this started, the streets were empty. People were really doing what they were told. Now, that's just not the case. A summer's day, the streets are full. The only difference is nothing is open. And all these businesses are missing out on all this income and all this trade with the streets full of people out enjoying the sunshine. So part of me thought, well, they're not going to be able to lock us up again.
Yeah.
People won't accept it. And I still think a lot of people won't accept it. But just before I came on, David, I was reading the news and Germany is now talking about another lockdown.
Yeah.
And our rates are going up to, you know, the silly R rate thing we've got.
Yeah.
We're getting close to 1 again. So they're already dropping these hints. And now Germany's talking about another lockdown at the same time.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good.
I personally think that I'm very similar to yourself, Anne-Marie. For a while I thought maybe we'll get July and August, you know, maybe or June, July, something. Maybe we'll get a couple of months of semi-freedom. It's a bit like last year, but we're not, because there's going to be another wave of infections, and they're going to use that to say, look, Boris is going to have to come on with Matt Hancock, Dr. Doom at his side, and tell us, look, you know, we really wanted to let you out, but unfortunately it's just too dangerous. So it is shocking, though, when under a Conservative government, we've lost more freedoms, Anne-Marie, than, well, I can remember, since Cromwell, arguably.
I mean, it's worse than Labour.
Much.
Labour did a lot of damage in its reign, its recent reign. And they took a lot of freedoms away. They eroded freedom of speech, for example. But this, I mean, you just said a minute ago that we might they might give us a month or two of freedom. I mean, even just the fact that we're talking about that.
I know.
It's incredible. And I don't know what, you know, I do know what we need to do to get it back is to stop voting for these parties, because there's no opposition in Parliament from Labour. None. They have gone along with every single bit of this, much like they both go along with the wokeism and the globalism and the mass immigration. There's no opposition. There's no contest. There's no argument. They're both on the same side on all these fundamental issues. Yep. We've got to get rid of both of them. And it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of time. You could get very pessimistic if you let yourself.
Well, Anne-Marie, the thing about you is, as I've got to know you, you're someone for whom hope kind of flows eternal. You're a very optimistic, hopeful person, and I think that's really necessary because we do need to have hope. And again, I completely agree with you. The Tories and Labour, they're all on the same side, no doubt about it. There is no opposition in our current system, really, which is why, Miriam, I think it is good that for Britain can put its sort of flag in out there and say, well, we are different. What would you say, Miriam, is the thing that makes for Britain most different?
That we will address subjects that no one else has the guts to address.
That's a good answer. Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah.
Well, and it's the same. It's the same with all these new parties coming up, David. There's no real passion for the people. It's a game. It's a political game. There's a lot of egos in it. They are all trying to out-ego each other. Winning elections is about them, and they'll do anything to win elections. And they are all singing from the same hymn sheets. They will not say what needs to be said. Immigration is the big one. And these new parties coming along, including Farage's one, they're not going to say what needs to be said about immigration or multiculturalism or Islam. Now, let's not forget, that hasn't gone away. Islam hasn't gone away. It's still there. That's still going. That's still a massive issue.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll talk about it. And I know that that's the case. And the others are just coming through for themselves, and they'll toe the line. They'll say what the press allows them to say. And while nothing gets better, nothing changes, all we have is this game continuing, all for the benefit of the politicians, and none of it for the benefit of the people.
I have to say, Anne-Marie, not that I'm partisan, but I did see Richard Tice of the Reform Party. Right. Telling us, tweeting yesterday, he'd got his vaccine and he was so happy. He was doing a victory dance in the car park after he got it. What a pathetic sight. And there are sort of tough issues. And going back to law and order that we talked about earlier on, at a time when we saw yesterday the police in Gloucestershire, I believe, harassed an 82-year-old lady for the crime of having a cup of tea in a common space with I think other residents of a kind of care home type thing, sheltered housing. The Gloucestershire police were doing that right now. Your party for Britain has courageously, for a significant number of years, and you personally, Anne-Marie, have raised some of the issues with the incompatibility with the Islamism. And how the grooming gangs and all of that. So here's my question. Where have the grooming gangs been for the past year? Because as sure as hell the police aren't doing it. I mean, they're too busy rapping the door of 82-year-old women at night. So where do you think the grooming gangs have gone, Anne-Marie?
They haven't gone anywhere, David. They're still doing what they do. They've been doing it. They haven't stopped. There's not even been a reduction. Rotherham is still the same, actually worse. I spoke to Jane Senior, who's one of the whistleblowers in Rotherham, and she told me straight, it's worse now than it was. And the reason it's worse is because people think something has been done. So attention has been moved away, and they know this. Rotherham's fine now. We can stop worrying about Rotherham. We had a report. Well, we had a report, so everything's okay. It's worse than it was. They haven't gone anywhere. And I call it Islam, David, rather than Islamism. And I do know that
I'm okay with that.
I do get there is a time for the word Islamism, or perhaps for the word Islamist. But Islam it's actually the religion that is the problem. And that needs saying, because it's in the text, it's in the Quran and the Hadith. That's where the problem comes from, and that needs saying. And if we call it Islamism, and it's not in any way trying to contradict or what you were saying, I understand why you say it. Fine. But my own position is, if we call it Islamism, it takes the examination away from the religion itself, and we tell ourselves that there is some there's some sort of distortion of Islam called Islamism, and that's simply not true. And I know that I'm unpopular for telling these truths, but it is the truth. It is coming from the scripture. And the problem as well with Islamism is that if you persuade people or agree with people that Islam itself isn't the problem, then you will create the tiny minority of extremists fantasy. And the problem with that is immigration. We will keep the doors open and say it's only a tiny minority of extremists, the vast majority are okay. That's just not the case. It's just not the case. It's the religion itself. And the people bring the religion. And that is how it is.
Well, Anne-Marie, can I just ask you, Chris Davis has asked me to ask you, what do you reckon about what's happened in Scotland with the Scottish Hamza Yusuf, or whatever his name is, Humza Yusuf, I think, bringing in what I see as blasphemy laws, basically, where you're not allowed to criticize, protect, religions. Don't think he had Presbyterianism in mind. Don't think it was Roman Catholicism. I think it was a different ideology. But what do you mean? That's Scotland basically introducing blasphemy laws. Do you think that's advancing Sharia? Well, what do you think about what's happened in Scotland? Could that happen in England?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in many ways it has. The only thing the Scots have done is make it, taken away the protection for what you say in your own home, which is actually terrifying. That definitely sings of 1984 and spying on each other and reporting each other. And if you have a conversation around the dinner table and somebody takes exception to it, they can call the police. That is where we are. That is where we are. But aren't they sly, David? At the same time, they abolished the old blasphemy law, the one to protect Christianity. This is sly.
Yeah.
This is political game playing. This is what they do. We're abolishing blasphemy law. Look how progressive we are. Meanwhile, we're introducing a new law that says people can spitefully, maliciously accuse you of all sorts of hate. And hate, as we know, it's a human emotion. It cannot be controlled. And any government who tries to control our emotions is a totalitarian one. But that's what they're trying to do. And when you're accused of hate, you have no defense. So you can be accused maliciously by anyone who happens to not be white, for example, or anyone who happens to be a Muslim, or any trans person either, or anyone in the victim categories can accuse a person of hate, and that will stick. It will stick, and they have no defense. And the Scots have essentially put that into law.
Yeah, but
this is wokeism.
Yeah, it's wokeism in steroids, because it's controlling not just what you say, but even what you think. Even, Miriam, in the privacy of your own house. As Anne-Marie says, rightly so, if you're sitting around with a few friends and you're just chatting, if we're ever allowed to do that again, mind you, but if assuming we do, and we're sitting around chatting with friends, and you know what it's like, people say stuff, just, it's not that well thought through always, but if somebody, takes umbrage at that, and they report you to the police, and these laws are in place like we've chatted about in Scotland, you could be nicked. You could be heading down to, the local courthouse, couldn't you? How do you feel about that?
It's quite scary. It sounds ridiculous and it's insane, but if you think about the actual notion of it, the knock-on effect of getting in trouble with the law, the effect that could have on your career, your family, your ability to earn money and provide for your family, things like that. It's actually quite terrifying, but it makes me quite angry when, you've got the police not responding to burglaries, not responding to, knife crime, the grooming gangs, all the cases of sort of child abuse that's going on. But if someone phones them up and says, "Oh, so and so said hurty words around the dinner table," and they'll be at your door,
that's right.
It's quite.
Hurty words and mean tweets seem to be what the British policing is focused on. But it is a fact, Anne-Marie, as you say, like what's been going on with the grooming gangs hasn't stopped. If you look at what's going on in London, I know we got last weekend. There was the whole thing about the lady, the murder of the 33-year-old woman by allegedly a serving officer in the police. But there's other stabbings happen in London all the time. I noticed. I've seen lots of stuff. The wanton violence, the gang violence. the tribal gangs of London, they haven't gone away either. It's just that they haven't made headlines. So, do you not think that completely undermines the confidence in the rule of law?
I think what undermines it is the behaviour of the police and the political siding of the police.
Yeah.
You can't. How can you trust? We don't trust the police.
No.
I have never known public opinion of the police to be as low as it is now. And that is far more dangerous than people are giving credit to, if you like. People like it's unstable. I don't feel, if something happened to me, I don't feel that if I rang the police that everything would be followed up and it would be efficiently investigated. I don't feel that at all. I don't feel that my political rights would be protected. I don't feel that my free speech, any of my democratic rights would be protected. And I don't think much would be done to anyone who harmed me, frankly. I really don't have that trust. And I'm not the only one. Their political posturing, their political siding has to stop. And that has to be by getting rid of the top. The top is saturated in left-wing politics. And the Tories don't know what to do about this. And this is why the Tories are so inept. They find themselves now with a public sector saturated in left-wing ideology.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything about it. And they won't do anything about it because they don't want to risk a nasty headline by the left-wing press. So what they'll do is make speeches. I heard yourself and Miriam talking about this earlier. Speakers, that's what they are. That's all they do is make speeches. And then nothing changes because it's too much. I mean, I might sound like I'm being flippant, but I'm not. I'm actually quite serious. It's too much like hard work. To actually make the changes that need to be made will take guts and perseverance and work, hard work. It's so much easier to make a speech, to issue a press release, nothing that will upset the press, of course, and then go home. So much easier.
Yeah.
So much easier.
But Anne-Marie, can I ask you regarding policing and sort of the political masters? Do you hold the politicians ultimately responsible for that which the police do? Because it seems to me that certainly over that thing in London, and we saw it at Clapham Common, whilst I mean, I wasn't very. There's so many levels of hypocrisy in this one. How come BLM rallies aren't treated in the same way? And is that a political decision or is it a policing decision? What do you think when it comes to those kind of fine balances?
The politics has created the police, David. I mean, if you look at how police are trained, they are trained as if they are left-wing social workers. They don't, enforcement of the law, objective, fearless, unbiased enforcement of the law is not an issue. And I've read through police training. It's simply, they might give a nod to actual enforcement of criminal law every so often, but most of it is social. It's about why people commit crime. People being excluded and marginalized, and minorities who are not integrated in society. No wonder they turn to crime, because they're excluded and they're victims of racism. This is how the police are trained. It's in their training documents. That's the problem of the government. Now, that was Labour who did all this. They leftified the public sector.
Yeah.
But the Tories have been in now. This is their 12th year. What have they done?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing to change it. Nothing. And now to get into the police, you have to be woke. I remember a woman who was trying to join the police, and in her application, they asked her about this, which is bizarre. She did say, actually, no, I don't think that people can change sex. She wasn't allowed to join the police because she didn't think people could change sex. They politely refused her application to join the police.
Yeah.
That's where we are. It's dominated by the uber woke left. And that's Labour's fault. But the Tories have done nothing about it because they're too afraid of the uber woke press. And they're lazy.
I mean, maybe you heard me say to Miriam as well earlier, Anne-Marie, that Priti Patel has proven to be a catastrophic disaster and arguably one of the worst Home Secretaries we've had. And that's saying something. That is saying, oh, I know it is, yeah. But I mean, her only game seems to be put out, as you just said, put out a press release. but don't actually do anything. So the dinghies can still, I mean, we mightn't be able to go across to France on holidays, but the illegals can come across in their dinghies. It's not a problem. And old Pretty's going to meet them with a press release. And, and then if they complain about the barracks they're put up in, they'll move to be somewhere. What a state. This is what I said at the beginning of the show. What an absolute state British politics are. Maybe there's never been a better time for a party such as yourselves to actually almost talk about real politics, not the kind of absolute garbage that Johnson and his regime put out, and Starmer and his mob are even worse.
They are even worse. And you know what? The other night, I watched Priti Patel in the Commons, and she was talking. She had all the sound bites. You know how they were talking about how women aren't safe and women have to hold their keys in their hand and pretend to be on the phone. And I'm not mocking that. I'm not mocking that at all. What I am saying is that Priti Patel, for her to stand in the Commons and repeat these sound bites, is insulting from the Home Secretary. It's insulting. That is the language for people having a cup of coffee if we had a coffee shop open. Yeah. That's what it is not. The Home Secretary should not be coming out with that sort of flannel. She ought to know, as a Conservative, what the problem is here. The problem is the left-wing police and the lack of punishment for violent crimes, particularly sex offences. There's no punishment. There's none. You get a couple of years, if that, and serve half of it. This is why these violent, particularly sex offenders, know they can go out and do whatever they like. They're not afraid of it. They're not afraid of the law. They don't respect the police. I mean, come on. If you take a group, getting back to the rape gang, the grooming gangs again. Take a gang coming over from Pakistan. They utter contempt for white people, utter contempt for women. And then they see our policemen wearing high heels and nail varnish and dancing around with whistles and rainbows. What are they going to think? And then if one of them does get caught once in a blue moon, they'll get a sentence of a few years, be out in half, back on benefits, back walking around supermarkets in Rochdale where their victims have to bump into them, and even be deported and still here. So even when we deport people, they're still here, still on benefits, and the police are going around with whistles and rainbows. What the hell do we expect gangs coming from rural Pakistan to think of us? What do we expect? They're laughing at us, and they're pretty right to. They're right to. It's pathetic. It's absolutely. I never thought I would see the day that Britain, the country I've loved and admired so much, would be a laughing stock among so many people in the world, and it is. And it's down to Labour and the Conservatives.
Yeah, it's down to the political establishment.
It is down to them. They're in charge.
They've rotted away. It's just an empty husk and frankly, it's indistinguishable as well. See, I don't see, after what we've gone through in the past 12 months, how can the Tories ever pretend that, we're the party of law and order when they've taken away so much of our rights? How can they ever pretend again to be the party of sound money when they've splashed the cash in a way that's just frankly incredible? So I don't even think they're recognizable Conservatives anymore. And Labour under Starmer, I don't even know what they are. I mean,
neither does he. Neither does he. No. You know, you can say what you like about Jeremy Corbyn, and people do, quite rightly. Septo will always be my favourite.
Yeah.
At least you knew who Jeremy Corbyn was.
You did, yeah.
He was a crazy, loony lefty, but at least you knew. And you know what? He stood by what he believed in. He had a principle or two, and he stood by them. It cost him Downing Street, but you still have to admire anyone who'll stand by their principles. Starmer has no principles.
No.
He changes from room to room and from audience to audience, much like, frankly, probably most of them in the House of Commons. But Starmer is a possible prime minister. He has absolutely no principles. He will go from saying we must reduce immigration to let's have open borders. And he literally said both of those things. But now it's just occurred to me, actually, I'm saying Starmer is a potential prime minister. The actual prime minister is no better. Boris Johnson loves to put out a soundbite. He loves to wave a little bit of controversy, like the burqa thing, when he said that women in burqas look like letterboxes.
Yeah.
Now, this is him trying to A, be funny, but B, to look like he's got that edge to him, that I'll deal with the extreme end of Islam for you. Trust me with it. And then the following week, he's in the Daily Mail saying, but I'm a Muslim myself. My grandfather came from Turkey. I'm all about, this is what we are governed by. This is what we are governed, game players.
But, given that, I completely agree. But, one of the things as well that strikes me, Miriam, is that here, in the UK, there's a big British working class population still. There is. And okay, maybe they're not working at the moment thanks to Boris keeping everybody for. But there's that strata of ordinary, decent British people. And when I think of the likes of the Boris Johnsons, the Matt Hancocks, I don't think they make any connection. And then I look at Keir Starmer. And for example, I don't want to get into any particular election scenario, but I believe Eddie Izzard is seen. I may or may not, I don't know, I'm not sure, as the sort of guy that would really make a connection in his pink beret and his makeup. But Miriam, I mean, it's just trying to understand the mindset that would even think that in the first place. Surely to goodness, that's not what ordinary Brits relate to.
Well, I think the problem is they don't really care what ordinary Brits relate to. That's the problem. They're career politicians or they're celebrities that are trying to sort of, get a bit of an ego boost or a bit more fame, which is fine. That's fine. But they're doing it at the potential expense of the people of this country.
Yeah.
Being involved in politics, even on a minor level, even just, at parish council level, it's hard work. It's not glamorous. I know sort of councillors, that do a brilliant job. They'll put a post on Facebook, the amount of stick they get from it, because whatever you do, you can't please everyone. It's not a glamorous job. It's tough, and it's dealing with mundane issues like overgrown trees and dog fouling and things like this. And a lot of these people, they're trying to get their face out there. They want the interviews. They want to be in the newspaper. I'm not sure they want to be going around picking up litter, though. It's maybe they do, and if so, then that's great. But this is it. And then obviously at the top level, you've got the likes of Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer. And do they even consider whether they relate to people or not? They're so far removed.
They are. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I just want to pick up on something Miriam said there. It's absolutely spot on. People want to come into politics and get all the glamour and the fame. And a lot of people don't seem to realize that in order to get the glamour and the fame, you've got to, first of all, sell out. And secondly, work. It's, as Miriam said, it's hard work. I've been out leafleting today. I've been out leafleting most of the week, as I'm sure many people in our party have. It's not glamorous. It was raining today. Your leaflets get wet. This is the sort of, this is not glamorous. It's hard graft. And when a lot of people, I think, come into it, and when they see that it's not glamorous and hard graft, think, oh well, I thought I'd be in the Newsnight studios by now.
Yeah.
To my mind, to get into the Newsnight studios, you've got to sell out the people, because the press sold out the people long ago, and they're not going to bring you in unless it's to ridicule you or try to humiliate you. But if your aim is to get on mainstream media, well, start selling out the people now. But really standing for the people is hard work, and it's graft.
No, well, I agree. And Anne-Marie, I mean, I know in your own experience, you found this, that if you try to get into, mainstream political programs so you can put forward the For Britain's views, I mean, the likelihood is the door will remain closed, or at best, if they bring you in, they'll set you up. So, and as you know, I've gone on a long time about my intense hatred of the British media. which doesn't, it exists to perpetuate the duopoly or the monopoly, actually. Labour, Conservative, same thing. And it exists to stop people like your party and Miriam, for example, in being able to at least have a platform to put forward views which people can then accept or reject. So don't you think the British media don't do democracy any service at all, and arguably, a disservice?
I think they're central to destroying it. And reason being that the politicians are so afraid of them. No politician wants to be attacked by the press day in and day out. And once they get hold of something, especially if it's about immigration, once they get hold of it, that person is going to get the same grief everywhere they go. And they're tired. They don't want it. They don't want it. They haven't got the answers. They haven't got the guts to give the answers. They don't want this grief from the press. So they just go along with it. And I think that the big parties, and you're right, monopoly is the right word, David, not duopoly, monopoly. I think they shape their policies in accordance with what the press will or won't give them a use for. So the press may as well be running the country at this point. The press are central to the erosion, death of democracy in this country, central to it.
Well, I think that's been really obvious, Miriam, to me. Again, going back to March of this time last year, when the COVID came in and there was the press conferences, and instead of journalists asking tough questions of Boris Johnson, the only questions they could ask were basically, when can we be locked down a bit more, and can it be a bit harder and longer? That was it. There was like no independent journalists. I mean, someone like me would be absolutely banned by a country mile from possibly asking anything a little bit tricky. But to Anne-Marie's point, Miriam, that's toxic, and isn't it? So it dissolves the essence of our democracy. You can't really ask sensible questions of the big parties.
No, I mean the mainstream media are as bad, if not worse, than the government. They're more out of touch with society and people. They seem to think that the whole of Britain is London. It isn't, and I'm a Londoner. I was born in London. I love London. I don't live there anymore. It's very sad to see what's happened to it. But they're not representing Britain as a whole. They don't speak for the people. There's various groups on social media, sort of anti-mainstream media, and I read all the comments. You can see. I don't know any off of the top of my head, but the faith in sort of the news channels, both here and in America, is declining rapidly. TV shows that were popular are losing their audiences. So the people have their own way to speak, but the media are just in denial, and they're just carrying on as though everyone agrees with them, and it's not the case. I think that's right. I mean, actually, just on that, Anne-Marie, I saw a statistic that said that the BBC's Question Time, their weekly prime, the political program, the audience had fallen from 8 million down to about 700,000 in the past 12 months. 8 million down to 700,000.
Wow.
But the BBC still get their 3.7 billion a year license tax. So actually, they can just go meh. Whereas in a normal entity, you would absolutely make changes, and that's one of the problems, that our major British broadcaster is immune from the consequences of its wokeness. So, I mean, I just think that the Question Time program doesn't work. But also, again, to what Miriam said, Anne-Marie, more and more people are not going to the media for news. They're getting it on social groups. They're getting it on social media. They're getting it in different ways. And maybe that's a bit of hope we have as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is, and it's happening. We're not there yet, but it is happening. I really am surprised by that figure for Question Time. I mean, I used to watch Question Time. I stopped some time ago because it really did make me want to pull my hair out. It really did. But that's a hell of a drop. That's incredible. And you're right as well. No consequences. The BBC can just carry on, and Miriam as well is absolutely right to say it is like they're in complete denial, but they can afford to be in denial. It's a bubble, the press, the government, the MPs, they all quite literally hang out together. There is that bubble. The Westminster bubble is very much a thing. They know each other. They talk only to each other. And they really think that they reflect the opinions of the millions out there. And the government believes that the press represents public opinion. It gets its public opinion from the press, not realizing that the press is as far removed from public opinion as they are. So they live in this little self-congratulatory bubble. They hang out together. They're all drinking the same bars. They still have bars, I believe, by the way, in Westminster. And they genuinely don't understand how far removed from normal life and normal people they are. It's quite frightening.
No, it is. I mean, those bars around Westminster, Anne-Marie, certainly pre-COVID and maybe even still, were places where...
I'm sure inside the Palace...
And inside
I'm sure they're still open in there.
The Palace of... Surely not. I mean, surely not. It's too dangerous. No, I mean, the hypocrisy of the political class is incredible. And maybe that's why in 2021... And we'll finish in this note. You know, having a party like For Britain, which is clearly very different and talks about, Miriam, as you said, we talked about at the beginning of this, like real issues, the things that nice people, that allegedly nice people don't want to talk about, but actually everybody's interested in. Like, for example, Islam, like immigration, like a lot of the bedrock issues for Britain. Maybe there'll never be a better time than now, Miriam, for Britain.
I think that the time is right for us, especially with, you know, for the moment, the amount of freedom people have to voice their opinion online. Obviously, you know, you can get shut down, but ordinary people now are learning about what's going on. And I agree. And the thing that I don't know why this popped into my head, but it did. But I was on Twitter the other day, and someone had tweeted something about Sadiq Khan had tweeted about making misogyny a hate crime, or something like that. Yeah. And so I mean I replied, does that mean that Muslim women can have 4 husbands now? And, so it's just like, how's that going to work? And it's, you know, it's back to sort of what we were saying about, you know, and Anne-Marie saying about the bubble, and they're all sort of in their own little world, and the contradictions that come out that everyone else can just plainly see. You're saying that misogyny is a hate crime, but you can't speak out about Islam, or you can't talk about FGM. Like, are you having a laugh? Yeah. They don't see how stupid they look.
No.
It's quite entertaining, really. But
Anne-Marie, Miriam's right. I mean, the incredible hypocrisy on this whole let's make misogyny a crime. Not misandry, oddly enough, little bit of sexism there, but never mind. Let's make misogyny a crime. But then, would that not make potentially any mosque a centre of hate crime?
Oh, you see, this is where you have to square the circle, David. This is where let's not talk about that, shut up you racist comes in.
Yeah.
If you ask the question about that, you'll be a racist, shut down.
Yeah.
Shut down.
Yeah.
By the way, David, I think you misgendered Eddie Izzard earlier.
Oh, yeah, sorry, and I want to make it absolutely clear. I just
called him a guy. I'm appalled, David. I'm appalled.
I have to say, well, I would like to personally apologise to Eddie Izzard.
Before the police come knocking.
Honestly, Eddie goes by she now, you know that.
You see, that's because we live in clown world. That's why. All common sense.
There is no better example of the madness than that.
No,
and Eddie Izzard can get up one day and say, by the way, I now want to be called a woman, and you better refer to me as she. And everybody says, yeah, all right then. Well, no, everybody doesn't. The bubble does. The public are too afraid to laugh. All we want to do is laugh and say, are you for real? But we can't, because we're all too afraid to say, well, what happens if I say, well, it's a hate crime.
It is.
You better call Eddie Izzard she, or you may be guilty of a hate crime. That's where we are. You want to sum up the state of British politics? There it is. Eddie Izzard is a woman. Don't argue. It's a hate crime.
Yeah, that's right. Shut up, bigot. That's right. You're absolutely right, Anne-Marie. But the other thing is, just before we finish, like, you know, I got two very sort of independent, capable women on the stream. But, you know, I personally, as a man, see all this issue that you've just touched on, Anne-Marie, as I think there's an attack on women, and it's being led by wokeists who seem to have a real problem with biological women. And I think that the victims are going to be biological women of all ages, you know, in areas like sporting activities and other areas as well. I can see that this is going to be one of the biggest challenges women have ever had, and it's coming from the wokeists and the left.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree with all of that. How can we fight back against something that is so insane? You know, you can't debate madness because there's no solid ground to stand on. No. You know, when Eddie Izzard is a woman, and if you don't agree it's a hate crime, well, all bets are off at that point. You know, there's no sanity anymore. Nothing is real anymore. There's no ground to stand on. And yes, women are, you know, women's sports is one example, but look, they're putting convicted sex offenders into women's prisons. What do they expect to happen? And no matter how many times it happens, the trans activists are still more important. Little girls sexually assaulted in dressing rooms and toilets, in rape shelters. There have been videos on social media of men dressed as women masturbating in rape shelters and enjoying this and thinking this is terribly ironic and look at where I am and what I'm doing. And no matter how much of that happens, the trans is still more important than the women. And yes, it is coming from the woke. Woke has been a threat to women for a long time. The mass immigration is also a major threat to women, and they're the ones pushing it.
Yeah, but I think this is the thing for Britain, Anne-Marie. You know, there are real issues and real concerns that people have. You know, wanting to have a job, wanting to be able to look after their family, wanting their kids to be safe. All these are real important things. And but wokeism isn't remotely bothered about these things. They're wanting to make sure that, you know, the trans movement is fully respected and blah 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 blah. So I just see this massive chasm, and that's why, as I say, I think for Britain, Miriam and Anne-Marie, I think it does open up something that maybe just wasn't as obvious. Let's say an obvious gap that maybe just wasn't as obvious a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't know if you would agree with me in that, but I think so.
Things are. It is. You're right. I mean, the woke don't care about bread and butter issues. People are. Look, I think the public is awake, David. I think the vast majority agree with us. The problem is the press won't give us the time of day, and when it does, it slanders and smears and attacks us. That's where the graft that Miriam talked about comes in. That's where, in order for us to reach the people, we're going to have to put in the serious, hard graft and go to the doorsteps. It's our only option, and it's not glamorous. And if people are coming looking for fame, I'm sorry, you're going to have to sell your soul at the door of the BBC. I won't. And people who come into For Britain to graft, they won't sell their souls at the door of the BBC either. So we can't do what the people like Nigel Farage do. We have to graft, and graft more.
I think so. Yeah. And I think you have to have, as you do have, and Miriam, you have to have the courage to say the things that people are interested in, but which the minute you say them, you're instantly labeled as, you know, bigot, racist, what I mean. But you have to do it. I'll tell you a guy who, in the last, just finishing this interesting story. Want your views on this? Piers Morgan became a martyr to the media because he thought Meghan Markle was probably not truthful in what she was saying. Actually, in that regard, I probably agree with him. But this is the same Piers Morgan I remember, Anne-Marie, who has spent a year terrorising people from his sofa on GM, on Good Morning Britain, about, you know, COVID. And previously, I remember him giving Tommy Robinson, for example, a really tough time. So I just find that the words that people like that, they typify all that's wrong in the media. They posture as man of the people, but they're not really, are they?
No, I don't think they should be posturing at all, to be honest. I mean, okay, Piers Morgan's different. He's more of a commentator. He used to be a journalist of sorts, but he's a commentator now. So I suppose that's different. But they oughtn't to be posturing at all. They ought to be objectively telling the news, and they ought to be facilitating even an open debate. And in my lifetime, David, I can remember when it was a fundamental of journalism that you didn't know what the journalist's opinion was.
That's right.
I remember that.
I do.
I remember that. Now, that's incredible to think that you wouldn't know what the journalist's opinion was. The media are busy pushing. Before I came on as well, I was checking the news. There's a video on BBC's website by the health correspondent, and it says, what happens if you don't get the vaccine? And what it tells you is, if you don't get, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not joking, if you don't get the vaccine, then you're a danger to those around you. It's not just about you, you know. The vaccine is perfectly safe. If you get it, you'll be a wonderful person. If you don't, you'll be a terrible person. Yeah. This is the health correspondent of the BBC. That's not journalism.
No, it's enabling. They are enablers for particular narratives and particular agendas. I mean, they fought so much against Brexit, the BBC, for years. They they did everything to demonize Brexit, and they continually fight against any party like yourselves who would want to make sure that our borders were actually defended and respected. So I see them as complete enablers and enemies of democracy. Fundamentally, is what they are. But listen, I've taken up enough of your Friday evening, ladies. It's such a pleasure to spend a Friday night with you both, and Miriam in particular. Lovely to see you as well, and thank you for coming on and filling the gap whilst we got the tech sorted out with Anne Marie, whatever that was. But look, as I say, I think certainly in the times ahead, parties like For Britain have never been more important, and the values you stand for, in my view, just my view, are ones which probably resonate with loads of people. So probably, Anne Marie, you're right. The way to get to them is knock on their doors and actually, socially distancing. Tell them about what you stand for, and unless this country removes the monopoly that controls us, then I don't think there's going to be much of a UK. So I don't want to be too pessimistic, but that's why it's important to have hope, and certainly I think For Britain does that. So look, everyone, thanks, Dan Marie. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you on the stream. That's it from me for this week, folks. I will return next Monday evening, so you'll see me at 8:00. In the meantime, everyone have a good weekend, and as I say, we will meet again. That's it from me for now. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, David.